there's times I'll say something and my oldest, she'll turn around and she'll look at me like, oh, you actually heard what I said yesterday. She knows when I have listened. It's like she looks back and she's like, oh, Dad, and it's almost like she'll even kind of look over and kind of do this. And and really there's nothing, on my part, it's actually just genuine care. Versus her at 15, if I did that. Well, why do you need to know that, Dad?
My friend, your role as a father is critical. You are truly so important. The way that you choose to embrace and step into your role as a father will have impact today, tomorrow, and far into the future. 3 nuggets from my conversation with my friend Bryan are: 1, be the dad that your daughter can trust. 2, set the new normal for your family. And 3, don't be afraid to chase something that you love. Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview incredible fathers gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our own craft. I'm your guide, Ned Shoup, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 11 to 18, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 21st year of marriage. So yep, I'm in the thick of it, and I am working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world through the way we embrace our fatherhood role. This episode is brought to you by the Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of the father is to serve, guide, provide, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is my friend Bryan Kelley, and we've known each other for a few years, but when you pause with somebody and you only talk family, fatherhood, and marriage, you learn so much about a person. Enjoy meeting my friend, Bryan. All right, it's hard for me not to be smiling ear to ear because to pause my insurance job to feed my family and stop and talk fatherhood with a fellow brother who cares about fatherhood as much as me, I'm already smiling and full of energy. So Bryan Kelley, welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. How are you?
Oh man, thanks, Ned. Thanks for having me here. It's a wonderful day, man. I'm as excited as you, and I've got more stories than I can think of. So I'm excited to see where this will take us.
Love it. Well, let's start with this first question. How old do you find yourself today?
I am, as of today, 47. We're not too far away from a change. So, see, I'm going to call it a young 47, even so.
Young 47. So how are you feeling at age 47? How are you feeling? You said young 47. What does that mean? How are you feeling about life?
Man, I feel better in my late 40s than I did in my early 30s. And that's the God's honest truth right there.
And why is that?
It's physical health. It's mindset. It's, I always get emotional saying it. It's the love in the family. There's so much I have to be thankful for. And, when that's in front of me, you talk about youthfulness, that just brings it out. It's just the reality behind it. So.
Well, I definitely want to come back to touch on some of those things, especially the physical, the fitness one, because you've done some cool things the last couple of years. So let's come back to that. How many years you been married, Bryan?
Just talking about this morning. I think we're going on 18.
18. Love it. Who are you talking about it
my
with?
mother-in-law, actually. My mother-in-law lives with me, and I made a joke about, I hope we make it to 20. And she's like, well, you're pretty close. And so it was good. It's good. So 18, I think, is the right number. We're going on 19. So just
nice.
around the corner.
Love it. And how many kiddos do you guys have?
3 girls.
3 girls. And what are the ages? What's that spread?
My youngest is 11. Middle one's 14. My oldest one's 18. And soon to be 12 and 19. So.
So I love it, dude. I feel you. I have 4 girls and a son, and I've got, my youngest daughter, 11, my oldest daughter, 18, and then a couple more there in the middle. What would you share with a girl dad, right? So as a dad of girls, what's something that you would share with somebody who has daughters that's maybe, they're under 5 years old?
Ooh, under 5. That's like my golden, man. That just lights me up. I always say in those years, they love you no matter what. Because even no matter how bad it gets, and no matter how, the reprimand, the tough conversations, they just come up and hug you. Dad, I still love you.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest thing I would share would just be patience. Girls, as a dad, and I've my entire life's blue collar lived in the guys world, and to come home and be tender and patient with my
Mm.
girls, that it took a little bit of it took a little work to get there. But I every day I think when I'm in family and we're here together, it's patience. It's understanding that the
Mm.
emotions they're gonna fly, and whether I want to be emotional or not, they're gonna be. And so
Yeah.
and even in those young years, they're just a ball of emotion. But I as they get older, those emotions change.
They change, but also my 11-year-old, because she's my youngest. Okay, so my youngest, that girl can dig her heels into the sand like bro. So, yesterday she did not want to go to jujitsu with me last night, which she goes every Tuesday. It's like, how are you surprised that this is happening? But she decided it's not happening. So I can't drag her booty out of the car when we get there. So she literally sat in the car for an hour and a half
Wow.
while I went in there. But check it, I came back to the car and she's like, Dad, I read the Bible. I was like, you read the Bible the whole time? I was like, I would have definitely fallen asleep. She was so like apologetic and sad. But the thing is first the youngest, right? You got your
Right.
youngest, and then the emotions. I'm like, what am I going to do? Drag her down there, her crying the whole time? So anyways, that was my story from 12 hours ago.
Wow. That's who should get the stubbornness from? You or your wife?
I don't know, probably the worst from both of
Mm.
us, the worst from both of us. Uh,
The youngest.
if
Oh,
you were,
go ahead. Go ahead.
the youngest is
Hmm.
interesting, but if you were telling the dad with that 5-year-old daughter what to prepare for, like, one is I love the tenderness and I love the patience, but how can he show up well for the middle school and high school years? What would be your advice, suggestion to that?
Just listen. Just pay attention.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just shut up and
yeah.
listen.
I mean, if there's anything that if I could unwind, so much of this stuff
Hmm.
I would unwind would be just to tell myself to shut up. I mean, it sounds
Hmm.
terrible, but they. What I found with girls, I don't know. I couldn't tell you boys because I don't have any. But with the girls, they always seem to need an outlet to talk, and
Hmm.
it just shows up over and over again. And I'm always hey, I want to go get it done, and then it's my wife's like, hey, slow
Yeah.
down. And I find with the girls, they just want to be heard, and they want to be reassured, and they don't necessarily. This is the my thing is, as a guy, it's a problem. How do we fix it? They don't want you to
Exactly.
fix it.
So simple.
They just want to be heard, and then maybe they'll want some advice, but usually not. It's thanks, Dad, you listened, and I'll talk to you a little later. Okay.
Hmm. I wish I would have learned that with my wife like 10 years ago. I feel like I've just kind of decided to pick up on that the last 6 months.
It's all kind of that same realm. They're different levels, though. The wife's a little different level.
Um, yeah, I'm learning that in business too. More the last, probably couple years, is to not let my emotions or my fix it mode get in. And somebody said this to me, and it's been really helpful. I actually brought it up to my team earlier. Is when someone's speaking to me, to go, do I need to hear this or do they need to say it? Right. And a lot of times it's just like they just need to say it, and I can like hold space for them, but I don't necessarily need to do anything with it other than maybe, like, here's an example. My daughter broke it off with some boy she was talking with, and she told me on Monday night. And then when I saw her on Tuesday, I was just like, yo, how you feeling about so and so? That was it. Just like a check in, not anything. So it's not like I'm just like in one ear, out the other, like I don't care. But anyways, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about the check-ins. That's if there's anything that I can connect with my daughters on, it's that little check-in. It's that showing that I actually heard
Mm-hmm.
what they said. It's the, when Dad actually heard it. I mean, there's times I'll say something, and my oldest, she'll turn around and she'll look at me like, oh, you actually heard what I said yesterday. And
Mm.
we live busy lives. Even my oldest daughter. I mean,
Yeah.
she's always, she's got 3 different jobs. She's constantly planning. She's, it's just the world she lives in, and not even in an abundance of busy. It's just she has things to go do. So she's in, she's out.
Yeah.
I'm in, I'm out, and and she knows when I have listened. It's like she looks back and she's like, "Oh, Dad, and it's almost like she'll even kind of look over and kind of do this, and and really, there's nothing, on my part. It's actually just genuine care. Versus
Yeah.
her at 15, if I did that. Well, why do you need to know that, Dad? What are you trying to find out? It's a huge difference, 15, 18.
Because I care.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's because you did that probably when she was 15 consistently, like not the prying, but genuine care. And I think that's a great, dads, if we can be tender, listen, and have genuine care for our daughters, like it doesn't matter how much you make, it doesn't matter what family vacations you go on, it doesn't matter what your house is like. Those things anybody can do with any amount of time.
Yeah, and my oldest, I've always had a pretty special relationship with her. I was, as we were talking, I was thinking about it. She's the one who at, I think 11 or 12 came to me and she says, "Dad, I'm just wondering, what was it like when your sister got her period?" And I go, "Honey, I don't even know if she ever got one."
Yeah.
But as a guy, I have no idea, and it took me completely by surprise, but she wants to know, and she trusts me enough to ask me. And, I took it as one of the highest compliments, because I'm not her mom. I don't know anything about her having a period, but yet she came to Dad. So that I always look back and I go, what are the check boxes that I can look at to say, okay, there's a level of trust there that we've been able to grab? And that one's always stuck out in my mind.
You know what? I think I'm glad you brought that up. I've always had open conversation with my girls about that. And I could walk through Costco with 2, boxes under each arm of tampons if I need to, no problem. There was actually a day my son and I were in there and had like 2 big old boxes. But to not make it weird and to be the dad that's trusted, right, with that. I think you're right. What a compliment to get from your 11, 12-year-old daughter, that through really a rite of passage that she wants you to participate in the conversation is very sweet.
Just the embrace around it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah.
And my middle, she's like, Dad, I don't even want to talk about that.
And that's good too, right? Giving her the space for it. And that's funny because my middle daughter too was like, she'll talk about it now, but she is less like, didn't need me to know.
Yeah. I even told her, we were on vacation and she needed a box of tampons. You're talking about picking them up. And I kind of knew she needed them because my wife had told me. Melissa's like, hey, could you? She's like, Mom, he can't. I said, honey, Dad doesn't mind. I'll pick up 8 boxes and run through the store with them. I don't care. This is taking care of you. So
exactly, I want to take care of you. Bryan, where do you guys live? Where do you guys do life?
So we live North Idaho. So we're just outside of Coeur d'Alene, and we're actually directly between Spokane and Coeur d'Alene. We're within 1 mile of what would be the exact center between the two. So I've got the best of the Northwest, the woods and the quiet life. And then if I need a city, I've got Spokane right around the corner. So it's a beautiful place to live. Love it out here.
Nice. Well, I am flying my daughter to Boise State in 2 weeks. That's where she's going to college.
Yeah, you're about 8 hours away from me.
Yeah, far, but still beautiful. North Idaho's pretty freaking gorgeous, so it's not quite like that in Boise.
65 minutes, I think, from Canada. So we're in, and it's 72 miles across. So when you think about that, to go from Washington to Montana, it's just over 70 miles. Yeah, so
that's crazy.
It's just a little sliver.
Yeah, that's cool. What do you do to provide value in the world and feed the family?
So my primary is automotive repair. I grew up in the auto body world. We can talk that's a whole nother story. But I grew up in the auto body world. came to buy an automotive repair business, and that actually is in the Seattle area. So I run that remotely, and then I do team coaching and consulting as well. So those are my two. I love working with people, and business ownership allows that, and then coaching, mentoring, and doing team leadership is they both drive the nail. So I love it.
Beautiful. So I know we use the disc profile a lot on our team. I believe that's what you use as well. As a father, how do you, and is there any specific tools that you like or have used with your kids? Like I just did disc with my daughter, Brooklyn, who's going to college. And we kind of went through the whole disc together just to help bring up more conversation, but they've done Strength Finder and some different things like that over the years, love languages, whatever. Is there anything that as a team building coach that you have used with your kids?
Yeah, so I love all those tools. My wife and I have used them. My oldest has been a test dummy for everything. She's she's constantly in and out of anything that I'm doing. She's in anything anymore. She's like, Dad, I don't want to do it anymore. Dad, I'm burned out.
Yeah,
so
I get it.
The most recent, and I'll say the one that I actually like the most is the Jordan Peterson test. And I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but it's called understandmyself.com. And man, it is the cat's meow. I mean, what's in that?
Yeah.
If you want to get into the layers in a pretty easy format, $20 and 100 questions, and very empirical. I mean, it is just boom, 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 boom. And, it's, I think of, there's a neurotic measurement in that, which is your tendency to see the world in a negative view. And women by nature typically have a higher neuroticism. Now, if you've got somebody that, in your family who, maybe they seem passive aggressive, or they never seem to want to jump on board. And, like my middle daughter, she's super high. She's like a 74, 75. Well, there's really nothing wrong, other than how I'm going to talk to her is going to be different. And so I love being able to dig in like that, because it's huge.
So what ages would you have your kids do those assessments? 15. So what ages?
It depends on maturity.
Okay. So have your two older daughters done it?
My two older have. My wife's done it. I've done it. We pile them all together.
Yeah. So check this out and give your feedback. But dads, if you're listening, for you and your daughter, for $40, you could go take these assessments, and it's not even about the results necessarily as much as it is you're creating an opportunity to have a conversation around something. So tell me about that,
the conversation's big. The other piece too is it will combine you, so you can look at how you interact with each other, and the pitfalls. I mean, we were sitting around having dinner and laughing, just in hysterics, because my oldest is like, "Oh my gosh, Dad, this is what makes me so angry when you do this, Dad." And she was talking about how I always have this tendency to engage her in a way that's disruptive. I kind of see I see the opening, and I just peel the onion back, and it points it out, that these two, that relationship, this is what happens. And she's just, she's laughing about it, but it gave us more awareness, and it brought a bond as well. It allowed us to sync up. And I'd say in a way that we hadn't before. And, when I think about it now, it also gave us a greater depth into each other, so the things that really bothered her, we might have joked about at dinner, but they're right here. Yeah. And it's, oh, okay, if she's really that excited about it, or that it's that disruptive, then how do I scale back? Because I know it's bothering her. Respect it.
Yeah, so there was somebody had made this comment, and I remember the first time I did it with Brooklyn when she was 12, but asking your kid, is there anything I do that bothers you? And then being ready when they tell you to not justify it, right? And so she told me something, and I was like, oh my God, man, in my mind, I'm like, that's just me being a silly dad, but she didn't like it. So I stopped it, because if I would have just said, oh, honey, that's what dads do, poof, boom, trust just lowered, right? So I think as fathers, two things I want guys to hear. We have the opportunity to create space, right? So taking a silly $40 assessment as an example for the two of you, and I say silly on purpose to be like, anybody could do this, right? Is is you're creating space. And then the other thing is, at a human level, we all just want to be known.
Yeah.
Right. So this was an opportunity for your daughter to better know you, and you
And
better
I
know
think there's
her.
another piece of it too, which we got to know each other, but she also got to see me as fallible. I didn't have to be perfect or ironclad. She got to see the weakness and the I can say some of the brokenness that's within me. And there's just there's so much power in that human aspect. And I had a good friend of mine just today, actually this morning, when we were leaving boxing. He made the comment about how he has to be perfect in front of his daughters. And I said, yeah, I don't know if
It's
perfect's the
not
right
good.
word, my friend. But as dads, we think we have to tote this line. And when she sees me as human, as fallible, all of a sudden, when I do something stupid, because I do it every day, she walks up and hugs me. She's like, Dad. And then it's like, oh man, hey, will you forgive me? What I just did right there was just wrong. And so then she's got a heart to love, right? Instead of animosity and frustration and not willing to go there again.
It's so cool you'd share that, because something that I'm 4 years into interviews with guys, and a lot of this is like a journey of what does it mean to be a father. And like, if I were to put it into kind of like a real base core, what's the purpose? It's, since you and I aren't perfect, our goal is really to point our kids to the perfect father. Right? Like, when we're hurt, when we're struggling, we were made with purpose. We were made for love. So I think it's really important, because otherwise we all have this desire to be loved, but even to be loved, it's like we can't fully embrace that unless we know where we come from.
Yeah, there's truth there. I love that.
So in a couple sentences, Bryan, what would you say the role of the father is?
Oh, the role of the father. The role of the father. So I'm going to share. I'm going to switch it just a hair on you. I'm going to tell you what. If you'd have asked me this 10 years ago, I would have told you the role of the father, and I would have said this with I would have rolled off my tongue. The role of the father is to provide for the family. That would have been my answer 10 years ago. And there's even a part of me sometimes when I say that, I can still see it. I can vision it. And, by provide, I thought, the role was pay the bills, put rent, food on the table, and maybe get them to games and make sure they get an education. And that was my job as a dad. And man, I just, as I'm thinking about it now, I just realized how far removed I actually was from the duties of fatherhood. Because when I look at it now, I mean, the duty of fatherhood is to love my children and to be a role model for them, to show them what success in fatherhood could be. And these girls are going to go out and find guys. They're going to get married at some point. I mean, that's the goal. And if the image I have painted turns them away from other men or guys that could be the potential for them, I failed. And that is, I mean, and that isn't something I want. Even my oldest daughter, she's watched me go through change. She's come to me and she says, "Well, Dad, you used to do this." Yeah, honey, I was pretty screwed up. Sorry about that. And it's just so I even see, even with my oldest, she looks at men differently than my younger two do. And I'm not going to say good or bad. I'm just going to say she has a slightly different image than they do, because she saw later transition. They saw earlier transition.
My next question was going to be, when did you embrace fatherhood? But maybe you could expand upon 10 years ago. What was the shift? Or, how many years ago, when was the shift where you went, man, fatherhood is so much more than providing? And how did you redefine it for yourself?
I think there's different periods over time. I think
For sure.
I think for me, it began with that first lie that, a father is responsible for their physical well-being, I would say. And that was kind of the first lie that I had in my head. And when I look at that, I as it comes, as I look at that, the first time it was challenged, and that goes along with another one that was deep in my head, which was I'm unlovable. And I say the first challenge I had to that was when my oldest was born. And when you embrace your child for the first time, and when I looked at her and looked into her eyes and held her, that lie that was so pervasive in my own head just rocked. And I remember the first year, just there's this different sense of love and this way of being that it was nurturing. I was caring, and of course you can't talk back or do anything you don't like. So the first year is pretty darn easy. And, that's where it started. And then of course, me being a guy, me being in my normal funk, I just start to put some armor on. And, and it's not till about age 5, I think, that it starts to show up. I get a little defensive around her. And of course, my second daughter's been born by this point. And of course, those, all that little bit of turmoil and mostly good. But I'm working 12, 15, 17 hours a day. That's my norm. I'm a small business guy. And there's some rocky periods of, you got the 2008 crash. I mean, all kinds of stuff's happening in life. And so I'm working more and working more and providing more and providing more and providing more. And that's the story playing in my head over and over. And I think where it really hit me the hardest was during our Rise Up Kings event, the refinery, and then I can go through 20 different layers on my way there, but this is the one that like just absolutely buried it for me. And I know you've been through it. There's an event called the Sand Cookie, and as I'm going through this, it's this rotational deal that you're doing, and I look over. It's in California. There's a beautiful jetty. And I look out on this jetty and I see 3 girls. They're the exact same age as my girls at the time. And I think it was 14, 11, and 7. And they all walk out on the jetty, and they're all 3 of them are wearing these yellow raincoats. I mean, you look over, and this is how my girls dress. I mean, I look over, they got pink shoes, this beautiful yellow raincoats, and they're out on this jetty. And I watch them. And this event goes on for 45 minutes to an hour and a half, somewhere in there. And every time I'm doing a lap, I see these girls, and I keep going and going, and I don't know how many laps I've done, and I look up, and man, they're just gone. They're not on the beach. They're not on the jetty. They're not behind me. They're not in the water. No clue where they went. And it just hit me that that's the life with my girls. They're there, and then they're not. And am I going to stand back and be sedentary to it? Or am I going to be active? Am I going to be intentional? Am I going to actually reach out and embrace them?
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that I don't even know if those girls are really there. Did I hallucinate the whole thing? Because I never saw them again. And they weren't just, I mean, yellow raincoats and pink shoes. How did they leave the beach? So I don't know. But I think that was the nail in the coffin for me for it. And it really, it changed the whole paradigm in which I saw my family life. And I'll tell you, the adventure all the way up and to that point, there were just little pieces here and there, but that was the one that it was, how can I be the intentional father? And I think it was maybe a week later that I opened up your fatherhood journal, as a matter of fact. And I don't think I've ever cried so much in my life. There were a few times I was cursing you, because as I'm going through that thing, and I'm just in tears, right? Because it just took me back to that ownership of, oh, hey, I may have provided a roof and food and education, but where's that nurture? Where's that listening? Where's that love? And I realized that I had left a ton. I had put all that weight on my wife, and here I'm going to give her the biggest shout out in the world, because here's what she used to do to me. She would put all the dates for everything the kids had on my calendar. And then 10 minutes before the event, or 10 minutes before I'd have to leave, she'd be on that phone. Hey, this is right now, don't you? Hey, hon, I don't care what you got. Pack your and you're on your way. Well, I can't. Okay, I don't think you heard me. You're on your way right now. And so she would get me to the event. So, I thank God she did that, because I would have just kept working.
Mm.
And not because I didn't love him, not because I didn't care, but because I had the wrong idea in my head that I just had to provide.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm. Man, that's so good. That sand cookie is a nasty part of the 3-day event. I mean, it's funny, if for the guys listening or whatever, if you've been, you automatically know exactly what that is, and if not, then if you're wondering if you're missing out, the answer is yes, you are. You should check
Absolutely.
it out. I was talking to somebody the other day. I mean, dude, personal development is so important. Like, you are an asset to your family. You better be making yourself worth more as an asset, whether you're reading books, praying, working out, whatever. Um, okay, what is you can
Mhm.
answer this how you want. It's a 2-part question. But what's your relationship with your dad? Do you have a relationship with your dad now?
I wondered if this would come out. Man, so I love my dad, love my mom. Um, I would tell you that the role model that I had, and I'll just start off by age 7, divorced. Um, by age 11, back together. By age 13, apart. I saw this on-off relationship. Growing up my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Junior year in high school, my dad gets hauled off to prison. So literally, the Fed showed up at my house, and I was at work. Thank God. Showed up, raided the house, drug him out. Or I should actually say, we had one of the neighbors was actually in the house doing work on the house. They thought he was them. They drug him out, and then my dad showed up 10 minutes like, yes.
Oh no,
So so this
that
is,
sucks.
and unfortunately, and I love my dad
Mm.
to death. But he's a con
Yeah.
man. And so I saw
Mm.
my entire life. I saw promises made, commitments that were never kept. I saw this distrust. I mean, I have this vivid memory of being like 11 years old, and I take that back. I'm probably 7.5, 8 years old, and it's my sister, myself, we're with dad, and mom and dad are they're not together at this point. And I
Mm.
remember thinking, it's been like 2 days, and I don't know that we've ever spent 2 days with dad. And we're on our way back. We're down. I think we're in like Oregon coast. We're heading back up to Washington, and we get pulled over. Dad gets hauled off. Well, he apparently stole us. And yeah, oh yeah, it
Oh,
was. I mean, this is, these are the kinds of things as a kid your mind doesn't
wow.
really even
Wow.
grasp. And so I
Yeah.
didn't see I didn't see a dad as a role model. And I will say the one thing I did learn from him are a lot of things I don't want to do, a lot of things that weren't functional. Um, but I would say the one thing my dad did, and he did this well, I never doubted if he loved me. He did show that he
Mm.
loved. Now, it's not that he was, oh, hey, I love you so much. And it was in the, hey, you've done this well. You've done this well. Hey, you've done this well. I'm proud of you. And he did a good job of
Mm.
that, because if he hadn't done that, I don't know that I'd be as maybe assured in what I do as I am, because he cared enough to do that.
Yeah. So let's
Hmm.
dig into that for a second. So you
Hmm.
said assured. So do you feel, let's say, assured or confident as a man? Was there a transition point when you felt that way, or do you feel like that your dad being proud of you, although he was a knucklehead in other areas, was what you needed to feel like a
Yeah, I think
confident man?
getting that reassurance, him being there as,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you did this well. I remember, he owned 1, 2, 3, 4 body shops growing up as a kid and lost all of them. I mean, every single time, set it up,
Mm.
and before you know it, he's completely out of business. And not in like a nice way. There, I'm talking like red tape the doors, people mad. They're trying to break
Yeah.
his windows out. I mean, horrible stories. But I think back to anytime he had me do something, there was always a pat on the back. I mean, I even putting the silverware away, putting silverware away in the house. Hey, great job. You did that well. And I remember he handed me right 9 years old, handed me a paint gun, and it's painting something, and walked me through how to do it, corrected, showed it to me in the end, and did it in just the most loving fashion. And I never felt like I screwed it up. And I've talked to so many people that their experience was they did a very similar deal, but they were told everything they did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere in there,
Yeah.
I will give him tons of credit in that, because he always made me feel like I could. And I don't think everybody gets that.
Mm. Yeah. Now, when you were painting, were you painting like something
Oh, I was
auto
painting a
body
fender.
shop style?
No mask or respirator.
Okay.
9 years old. Just
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But so interesting. So that's the business that you ended up getting
not auto
into.
body. We're mechanical repair. Yeah,
Got it.
I
Got it.
didn't
Got it.
find a
Got it.
love.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't find a
So a
love
little
for auto body
different.
repair. Nothing against it, just wasn't my thing. It's kind of like I say there's a mechanical
Yeah.
side of the brain and there's an artwork side of the brain. I had much more mechanical than I did artwork.
Hmm. So, Bryan, before we hit record, we were kind of rapping about some things, and then you had even brought it up here during our conversation that there were some lies that you've believed. One of them was the lie that the father is just to provide, but then you kind of alluded to
Mm-hmm.
the unlovable, and you said a couple others. So, what are the lies that you believed, and then how did you shift from those
Yeah,
lies?
so I'll go after the unlovable, and I this probably stems, and I've dug into this at nauseum. I would say it stems on mom's side, and just the
Hmm.
and again, love my mom. She passed away a couple of years ago. She died right at the beginning of COVID. Anything I'd say here, it's not. It's just what was. She was she
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of trouble, a lot of issues, and she solved most of her issues with alcohol and pills. And so, growing up around that as a child, a lot of the feedback I received, I think, dad was loving in a way. Mom it was, she loved me, but there was always some twist or some turn to it. And I began putting together a story in my own head that I was unlovable. And, like I say, that story got challenged when my first daughter was born, and it got challenged, and I didn't recognize it got challenged. I just knew I felt different. Right. And so,
Yeah.
as that progresses, as my oldest daughter is the best representation of it, because she's the one that she's very inquisitive. She wants to know and she wants to ask. And one of the stories that comes to mind for me, she's 13, maybe 14, and we're driving down the road. I think I just dropped her kids off, and we had an awesome day. Gone to the movies, and just beautiful day. And she looks up and she goes, "Dad, why didn't you ever want to be like your parents?" And man, you
Hmm.
want to talk about triggered. Holy cow. I mean,
Hmm.
I, I went completely off. And my wife, again, thank God for my wife. I think sometimes I think God brought her for me, just because he's like, this guy's going to need some help. So we're going to give him a saint that will guide him when he needs it. And she looks over and she goes like this. And I keep going. And she's like,
Mm.
"Yeah."
No more.
And finally I stop, and she's like, "Guys, we're all done talking. Everybody just sit in your seat. We're going home." And that's one of the first times I really cognitively knew something was firing incorrectly there. And,
Mm-hmm.
it came through in this defense mechanism of, what kind of person would think I'd ever want to be like them? And then I realized that same story of I'll never be like them drew me into being like them. I protected my own heart. I
Mm-hmm.
protected giving love. And so there's this, for me, it was kind of this back and forth. And, there's some challenges even I had with my wife, and that's a story that, that's her story at this point. Maybe share another time. But what I'll say of that is, her forgiveness brought me
Mm.
to my knees, and and it showed me that love wasn't conditional. And that was the turning point. I mean, for my entire life, to go just eyes peeled back in a way that I don't know if I can fully describe what happened to me. It was almost like 10,000 pounds of weight just fell away. And I said, you love me at that level? And she's like, yeah, of course I do. And so for
Wow.
me, it was like, okay, I've challenged the story, challenged it, don't believe it, don't believe it, don't believe it. Now it's right in front of my face. You're not just lovable, you've got 3 girls. And again, God's so amazing, right? I mean, if he'd given me a bunch of
Yeah.
boys, we would have bashed knuckles and heads, and we'd probably be bloody, and God knows where that would have gone. But no, he gave me 3 tender girls and a mother-in-law and a wife. And he just buried me with love, right? Just almost as if to say, hey, I know your heart is hurting. And as soon as you're ready to see it, it's here. Just embrace it. Because all these girls, they want you. They want you to be that man. And so dispelling that, and full transparency, I'm going to tell you that thing shows up once in a while. It's a creature, man. That lie, just all of a sudden, I'm like, I'll be working away, and it'll start creeping in the back of my head. And it's not like this foghorn that says you're not lovable. It's, does that really matter? Are you sure you have to do that? Do they really care? Do you know that they did this and now? And so, so I've learned over the years to hear it, but it's sometimes for me, it's just as simple as my wife coming in and putting her hand on my shoulder. And,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that was there. I will say, I don't think there's a more toxic lie to a man than to believe that you can't be loved by those around you.
Yeah. And a lot of men, I think, are okay with living that way, right? Because they'll put their head down and go provide, right? But then the downfall of that is your legacy, right? Because then your daughters don't feel loved, your wife doesn't feel loved, and so our whole purpose of existence is missed. So our fulfillment, right? Because making money is like, it's cool, but it's not fulfilling. It's not fulfilling. And I think that's a major lie that we've believed, that like if we go make money, we'll feel good, and we don't.
Yeah,
You know.
one of my mentors, he was a high school teacher, and and this is
Mm.
probably before they're making what I would call a living wage. He retired in, I think 2000 or 2001, and I mean he paid his bills, right? But there weren't fancy cars, there weren't boats and toys. And I
Right.
looked at the kids he raised, and they're the pillars of the community, right? And it didn't take
Hmm.
wealth, it didn't take working his tail off. It took genuine love and care and showing them that they matter, right? I no matter what I buy my daughters, doesn't show that they matter. What shows matters is when I'm at their cheerleading practice, when I'm at the baseball game, when I'm all of a sudden doing all those things that they're invested in, and I'm excited to be there, right? And so often my mind went to, I'm going to include them in my life, right?
Hmm.
I'm going to make them a part of my life. And the story became, how can I become a
Yeah.
part of their life? No matter what it is, how can I become a part of their
Hmm.
life? And that's, to me, probably where the biggest piece came up for me was just digging into, okay, here we are, and it's like my middle daughter, she made the cheer team. So this year it's like, okay, I guess I'm going to every football game. It's just what it is, right? And
There you go.
that's how I become part of her life. And it might be taking her to practice. It might be taking her to cheerleading, her cheerlead trial. It might be even taking her to school first thing, whatever event it might be. It might just be take her out to ice cream. But what is it that serves her? And so much
Hmm.
before that was, here, I'm going to include you in mine.
Yeah. I think it's really important, like as you said, that it just for me, Well, one, I wrestle with that too, like making my kids a part of my life. But then I think about my own life. I want to feel like those around me do also care about me, right? So if I think about my parents, do they care about my life? So for your kids, do you care about their life, or do you just care about their life in the way that it fits into your own life? And if that's the case, then you're really missing out, because you'll never fully be known because you're not fully knowing
Yeah.
someone. Bryan, you talked about marriages a little bit. You made a what about your, making it to 20 years. You shared about your dad's inconsistency with marriage. What what is it going to take? Maybe that's the wrong way to ask it. But okay, imagine yourself at your 50th wedding anniversary. Like right now, you have grown kids, they're married, maybe there's grandkids, and you are with your wife and you are celebrating 50 years together. Like, what comes up for you as far as like what'd you do to get there, or grace or love or whatever? What is it that you think about? Because this to me is like one of the greatest gifts we could give our
Yeah, that
kids.
is, man. I have this image, and it's again another mentor I have. His name's Pete, and his wife passed away about 2 years ago now, but they made it to 57, I think it was 57, 58 years.
Whew.
And and
That's awesome.
and to meet them, the joy that you saw anytime they were with each other,
Mm.
and that's, and for me, that's what it is, right? It's the joy that we can provide, that is just exuding from us. And
Yeah.
I had somebody come out, and a good friend of mine came to stay with us, and he never stayed at the house with us. And he lives over in Chicago, and he came over, and I mean, by the second day he was here at the house, he was kind of just laughing. And he goes, "You guys are an absolute crack up to be around." And I said, "Alexi, what does that mean?" And he goes, "Man, you guys live life, don't you?" He said, "You dig into each other." He said, "You throw stuff at each other in an oral fashion and physically." He said, "You're making jokes. You might smack each other." He said, "But it's all banter. It's fun." He said, "And then you turn around and give each other a kiss and a hug." And and what was it? How does he said it? He said, "There were a few times I thought maybe you were serious, like there was a real fight going on." He said, "But you, even in your fight, you're having fun with it." And that's, if there's any transition we made in the last, again, 5 to 10 years, it was, we don't really fight. We have hard conversations. We have conflict, but in the middle of the conflict, we're laughing with each other, and we're enjoying the conflict. Because and Ned, you've met Melissa. She is A type. She's hard driver she's on the disc. She's an ID, and so she is going to test every bit of patience that you have, right? And so, because she'll call me on anything that I do, I've got to respond. And so what you find is conflict's not an issue in our home.
Yeah.
But having healthy conflict was. And so now when we have conflict, even my kids are like, "Guys, we have friends over." And we're like, "Yeah, I know. This is just what you get, guys. And be thankful you get this, because if you didn't, we'd be in the back room fighting."
Yeah.
And you don't want that. And so when I think about 50 years down the road, 50 years, so another 30 years from now, I think about the joy that we'd be having with each other in those moments.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, and it's work. I mean, it's work. Like you're sharing. It's a constant. It's a constant. Okay. Before we go, I got to ask you about this. So I know the last couple of years you've changed some things in your fitness. I've changed some things in my fitness. I've noticed so many things unlock for my life as I've become a disciplined man. I thought I was disciplined until I started counting my macros. And then I learned what discipline actually means. So you talk to me. You got into boxing and you've made some shifts now. Is this because you live with your wife, your mother-in-law, and 3 girls, so you had to get an outlet? Like, what's up? What got you into this?
Young child, 13, 15, spent a lot of time boxing. And by a lot of time.
Okay. So this
Yeah,
is
I
like a
mean, I just
lifelong
enjoyed it.
passion.
I mean, it was always fun. And
Mm-hmm.
about 16, I talked about my dad getting taken away, and I mean, I pretty much became the provider at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gone for 4 years,
Mm.
and a pretty pivotal time. And so anything that I was doing,
Yeah.
I mean, it pretty much just stopped. And I went to. I mean, I've been in work mode almost ever since. And so as you unwind that a little bit, you can think
Yeah.
that many years later. Um, I had an opportunity. I actually, when I moved over to the North Idaho area from Seattle, I had this idea. I was like, why don't I try a boxing gym and see what happens?
And how old are you
Is that
when you
five
decided that?
5 years ago now? Yeah, so almost. Yeah. In
Okay, so
fact, I was
42.
42. That was the joke, because the
Okay, so this is really cool though, because I want dads to go like, dude, find that love again. So talk to me about
yeah this
finding that
this is
love, and
42,
yeah, tell me
and I
more.
mean, I'm at this point. I mean, I'm not grotesquely fat, but I wish I had a picture sitting here. Because when I see him, I can see the cheeks, and I can see the chin, and I can see that the
Little
heavier
jowls.
chest. And it wasn't good weight. I mean, it was tearing me down. And at the time, I had high blood pressure. Cholesterol was off the chart.
Mm.
Oh man, I had a litany of things going on, right? And they were talking about even putting me on medication. I think I was 227, 228 pounds, and for probably
And what do you
190,
weigh now?
195, be my guess. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
8 weeks off.
Heck
I
yeah,
broke a
that's what's
rib
up.
here, so I'm probably at the higher weight right now. But yeah, I mean, I found myself in poor health, and it affects sleep. It affects sleep. It affects your performance. It affects, I mean, I would even say sexual drive to some degree. That's one area
Mm-hmm.
I probably, even then, I'm probably still chasing it too much. But, but it affects everything, even cognition. I think about.
Never say that again to me. I'm chasing it too much. I never want to hear you say that again,
I,
Bryan.
that is what I do. I love my wife and all of her physical attractiveness. So there's just that passion always exudes out of me. So yeah. Oh man,
Good.
it's like,
That's what I
yeah,
want to hear.
want to
That's
be
what I want to
there.
hear. Okay,
So,
keep going.
where I was going though, it's even mentally, I would find fog. I just wasn't
Mm.
engaged. Right. And so
Yeah.
as I'm thinking back, I recognized a lot of that, but I didn't put it together with the physical side. And and you'd think, right? You're going into a boxing gym, you're taking shots. I mean, there's nothing nice about going at 5 o'clock in the morning, punching with a bunch of other guys, right? And
Brutal.
but what better way to start your day?
Yeah.
It's all downhill from there. Eat a couple of shots to the face. There's nothing else that's going to be worse than
Yeah.
that for your day. So yeah, so I began this journey of it wasn't to lose weight. It wasn't even necessarily to be in better health, although I started seeing the benefits. And it's like, oh, wait a second, I'm not sore anymore. I mean, you eat a few shots, you're gonna be sore that way, but I wasn't sore like my back and my
Yeah.
arms and my legs. It was fitness sore. And I just started noticing differences.
Mm-hmm.
And I became more active with the family. I became more active with work. I could engage more. I even reading more, sleeping more. All the things started to just align. Would be the best way to put it. And you know, I've just
Mm.
man, the journey has been absolutely awesome. And the intent wasn't, like I say, it wasn't even, oh, hey, I'm going to go get ripped. It was more of, I want to go box. And you find out real quick, if you're not in cardio shape boxing, you're getting your butt kicked. There's no way around it. Your hands come down, and guess
Yeah.
what's next? Your face eats a bunch of punches. So it's in your best interest to get in shape. And so yeah, I mean, I've been pushing hard 5 years. Had a tournament in what was that? Vegas here, March.
Yeah,
That
dude.
was awesome.
How was
I
that?
KO'd the first guy, second round, and then second guy, they
Dude,
actually
that's so
stopped the fight.
crazy.
He was he same age, ex-pro soccer player, came out, guy's fast as all get out. And I joke because I look at the tapes of it and I look like a retard. I mean, I'm in full defense mode, and this guy's, I mean, it's just one after another. And, I'm not really getting hit, but I just can't respond. And I laugh because I was not prepared for that at all. And, so they actually, it's second round. We had I may have hit him once or twice. It was the first round was just a show. And second round comes, and he kind of backs me into a corner. I slip one punch. I lay a solid 1-2 on him, and I watch his back leg buckle. And I'm just about to go for it, and the referee puts his arms around me and stops the fight. And I look and I go, "Hey, what's going on?" He's like, "No, I don't think you're ready for this fight." And my corner, I mean, they're sideways. And so, so it's one of those things where admittedly, I probably looked. I don't even think that the ref saw me hit him. I just think he thought, hey, the guy's in the corner, he might get hurt, and he stopped the fight. And that's the way it goes. That's part of it. But it's been a fun journey, So I'm actually training. I think our next one is in November. So another tournament. And if there's guys out there thinking about just taking a fitness journey of any kind, whether it's Muay Thai, whether it's jiu-jitsu, boxing, whatever sport it may be, if you're into, impact sports of any kind, you'll find a tribe, and that tribe is amazing.
Have your daughters shown any interest in it at all?
Neither one of them like getting punched in the face, so they said, "Dad, this is all for you."
Yeah, dude, I hate it.
And I'm that Irish guy. I guess a couple broken noses, a couple shots to the eye. It's just what you got. Just what it is.
It's all good. You're okay with it. Bryan, I love it. So fun connecting and learning more about you and fatherhood and your story. Any last thoughts before I ask my final question?
No, I think we've summed it up pretty well. I think I don't think I left any wide expanses there, so I feel good.
Well, here's my last question for you, and it's a legacy question. Imagine 20 years down the road, you're peering into the homes of your daughters. They are married. Their life is now about their family. What is it you hope to see that would put a huge smile on your face going,
I think for me, it's the grandkids. That's where my head has been, because I've thought a lot about this. And for me, it's seeing the grandkids. It's seeing both a healthy marriage and grandkids that are thriving, right? And seeing them even getting the love that I didn't give in those early years, right? And knowing that I'm a resource and that my girls would trust me as a resource to guide, because here's the thing. Marriage is messy. Raising kids is messy. And we're all going to drop that ball multiple times. But knowing that there's a resource that's open and honest and willing to be a part of it, I think that's the piece for me. The legacy is I want to be that resource, and I want them to trust me to jump into it, to say, hey, you know what? I know I'm your daughter, but hey, my husband trusts you as much as I do. And here's that hard conversation. And I may not like what they have to say, right? But I'm here. And I'm here for the marriage. I'm here for the grandkids.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's the legacy, is knowing that those grandkids will continue on. And breaking
Beautiful.
and I guess that'd be the other
Bryan.
piece too, is knowing that the generational curse that I saw of divorce and it extends into my grandparents. That there are multiple divorces on both sides all the way through, and knowing that we're past, knowing that cycle and that curse can be broken.
Yeah, you set a new normal. And every dad listening gets to decide what is normal. You can't dictate or decide everything your kid's going to do, but you can set up what they see and know is normal.
Yeah, how committed
it comes
are you?
Down to you.
Right?
Yeah, and that's why I think one of the best things to do as a man is to think about yourself as 80 years old, looking into a mirror and go, are you going to look into eyes that feel like you respect yourself and the decisions you made, or are you going to have a lot of regrets? And if you think about the things you're going to want to feel about yourself, you're probably not going to be thinking a lot about the money you made or the business you built. Not that you shouldn't do those things, but that can't be the first pillar we pursue. Otherwise,
at the cost of everything else. My counselor I worked with for years, he said, it's a really good thing all of these billionaires made the money they did because they can afford therapy for their kids and their grandkids now. That's not the guy I want to be.
No, I want to be the billionaire who has awesome kids and
right?
grandkids.
and the best part is we can.
Yeah. And also we can, but the pursuit, right? I will be just fine at 80 years old if I don't have the billion, but I have the 60-year marriage at that point, So it's like, you got to have your priorities in alignment. Man, Bryan, so good, killer. Love connecting with you. Thank you for the time. I can't wait till our paths cross again. I'm sure it'll be sometime in the next couple months at a Rise Up Kings event. Much love to you and your family, bro.
Thanks, brother.
Until next time. What another incredible conversation. The two things that really stuck out to me are, one, having genuine care for those that have been placed in your care, right? God has entrusted you with a family, with resources, and genuinely care about those relationships, genuinely care about those things. The other component was how Bryan talked about not being the center of the story. Like, it doesn't have to be his kids coming into his world, but he goes into their worlds. If we are to look at our opportunity as fathers and step into knowing our kids and what matters to them, the depth of our relationship will grow. My friends, if you enjoy these conversations, please write a review. It helps spread the word that fatherhood matters. Thank you to all you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your kids, spouse, and community needs. This is your Guide and Ed shout together. Let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact, and let's create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next week.